Hey, welcome back to the garage. Today we've got something new to install on the Tacoma. I'm super pumped. So why don't we go ahead and take a look. Alright, so Auxbeam was kind enough to send out this 8-gang switch panel for me. I've been wanting one of these for some time, and I'm super stoked to check out this option. It's a lot more affordable than some of the other big names out there and their multifunction switch panel options. This one has kind of the whole suite of features that you would want in one of these. So it's got RGB backlight control, so you can make the color, the backlight of the switches, whatever color you want to match your interior lighting. It also supports momentary, pulsed, and just like on-off toggle functions for whatever accessory you put on there. And it also has a Bluetooth app as well, so you can adjust those colors and make groups and things like that. So super stoked to check it out. Why don't we get the box open and see what's in here. Alright, so you have your nice suite of stickers for all your various different switches. So they include quite a bit in the box. Very, very detailed instruction booklet, and all of the goodies are right here in the box. So first thing, we have our switch panel here. Now this is actually all metal, which is nice, so it feels very sturdy. On-off button right here in the center, and then all your 8 buttons here. Now there are different colored LEDs up here above the buttons to signal which mode you're in, if it's momentary, pulsed, or whatever. And yeah, looks like it's pretty decent. So looking forward to getting this installed in the truck. Got to find a spot to put this that I like, but yeah, stoked on that. You have some wiring here. This is a fuse tap. You've got a nice bracket here for the switch panel, so if you want to use this, you can certainly use that. Some more wiring of some sort. I have to look into what that's for exactly. Even more wiring, and it is nicely braided as well. Oh, there we go. Oh, this goes to the controller, so this is what you'd run into the vehicle. Then we have our switch box here, or the switch assembly. This is where your relays are at and where you're going to hook everything up. Can't tell if this, yeah, the bottom is metal. This top cover here is plastic. And looking inside, you have your circuits here. So 2 30 amp, 2 20 amp, 2 10 amp, and 2 5 amp circuits. This is all very nicely waterproofed and sealed, so it should hold up pretty well. And then you got little lights here to signify if your fuses are blown. And they include some spare fuses and a tool as well. Honestly, looks really quality. Whoops, let's get that on there. Alright. And then we have a 60 amp breaker here as well. So this looks pretty nice. Some hardware, and then your power leads here for the battery to the switch assembly there. I think that's it. There's this as well. Not sure exactly what this is for. And some zip ties. Oh, and then, oh, I see. Look at that. So they give you a whole, this is awesome. So they give you a whole mounting bracket for installing this in your vehicle. Let's see if I can get to focus. There we go. So yeah, you can just mount this wherever to flush mount it. That's nice. You don't need to buy something extra like a power trays or whatever to get this thing installed. And then I think this is another mounting bracket, maybe a flush mount or something like that. Alright, that's enough rambling on about the contents of the box. Let's go ahead and get this thing installed in the truck. I think install should be pretty straightforward. It looks like it can't be too difficult. And the hardest part's probably going to be figuring out where I want to mount that panel inside the truck to control my lights. So why don't we go ahead and jump into it. Alright, so we're going to relocate this here. And we're going to go ahead and probably stick this in its place. So right in this spot here, I think we'll have room. Alright, it's a few days later. We've got some snow, but got the switch panel installed, so why don't we take a look. Okay, so the bracket that it came with I didn't end up using. I actually installed it on top of the fuse box here. I can still get into my fuse box. I'm not gonna open it all the way, but I can still get in there, and then I have a picture saved on my phone of the fuse panel diagram. So still have that, but everything is all mounted. See, got my lights wired in there already. And then I made a custom plate here to hold the breaker. So as you may recall, I already had a breaker in here, and that was for the solar in the back of the vehicle and that power back there. So I just made it a little bit longer so I had enough room for the other breaker there. Now I did have to make my own lead here for this, something a little bit shorter, and then I also had to kind of do the negative a little bit as well. So you may have to, lengthen or shorten these depending on where you're installing this. If I was going to put it back here on the firewall or something, I would have had to lengthen my leads in order to make this work in my scenario. But the leads they do provide should cover most applications. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the inside. So moving along to the inside of the truck, this is where I chose to mount the switch panel. Now ignore the blank squares. I put just some regular gaff tape over those until I figure out what I'm ultimately going to have in here, and then I'll use the black blanks that they provided, but I didn't want to use those just yet. So I got it installed here. It's in a convenient area for me to reach. That was really important. I didn't want to be having to reach way down to turn things off or what have you. So this is in a nice spot, relatively out of the way, and just kind of tucked the wire back in there behind the steering column. So super, super easy to use and install, nice and clean, and I'm definitely liking it. There's probably some other spots that I could have installed it around here potentially, but I would have been blocking something. Another spot is doing it up there, but right here is out of the way. I'm not blocking anything, and it's easy to get to. Alright, so I turned the truck on. As you can see, I did change the backlight to try and match kind of the interior lighting on this truck. But yeah, now that the truck is on, you can see that we have ability to turn on our lights, any of the switches that we want on. Those ones are set to strobe, so that's why the color, indicator color, is a bit different. And then yeah, so if I have these both on, I can go ahead and hit just the power button in the middle and turn the entire thing off at once, or turn them all on. Now, here's the app on the phone. I apologize for the polarization, but we'll just go ahead and open that up. And then Bluetooth, make sure we're connected. See, you can see the app's a little bit unfinished. There's like some just kind of weird stuff in here, but we should be good. So let's see if I toggle the brightness on here. Yeah, so it's good. So it does have automatic dimming. If it's super dark in here, it'll brighten up. I don't know if it'll actually do it in here. And then it'll dim if it is, if it's super dark, it'll dim. If it is super light out, it will brighten up. And then, of course, you have all your ability to select any different color that you want, which is cool. You can customize it to the interior color of your vehicle. Now, moving over into the icon setting, I can actually take a photo of what I want as far as setting up the buttons in here, or I can just choose from a list of like default icons. So if I want, let's find, maybe I'll just put front. So we go select, boop. All right, so now we got an icon there. So you can basically mirror the same thing you have on the Switch in your device. Now mode. So with mode, I can actually, you see I have, that one is set to pulse. And then you can control the pulse speed, which is pretty awesome. And then you can just change it. So maybe I want it just momentary, or maybe I just want it regular on and off. So momentary is going to be you press it, essentially hold the button down to turn it on. As soon as you let off the button, it's going to turn off. And then I can also activate these myself in here. Let's go to mode, I think. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, so there we go. And then I'll use the app to turn them off. Boop, off. Turn these ones on. Turn them off. So it's pretty cool being able to see them on here and utilize them. Maybe you're not in your vehicle and you happen to be outside and want to toggle them on with your phone. You can do that, which is awesome. And you can also create custom groups. So if you want to tie multiple different functions together into one group. So say if I turn on the front and I also want the windshield lights and maybe rear lights to turn on at the same time, I can also do that as well. So really customizable, definitely like that. The app has some bugs like the being able to, and you can also name your switches too, but just some of the text issues and the Bluetooth menu is kind of funky, but other than that, it works pretty dang good. Can't really complain for the price of this compared to the competition. But that's just a look at the app. Lots of customizability, which I love. All right, so we're outside of the truck. As you can see, I've got this one on pulsed, so I can speed it up really quick. You can barely even tell on the camera. Slow it down. I can slow it way down. Or I can just turn it to toggle. Boop, and then we're turning them on and off with the remote here. So off, on, which is awesome. Do the same with the front here. Oops. Boop. Off. On, off, on. All off, all on, all off. So pretty awesome. Definitely liking that. I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, no, it's all hooked up. Installation, it's really pretty easy and straightforward. Just got to find your spot where you're going to stick it under the hood. That's the hardest part, figuring out where it's ultimately going to go. But it is pretty compact, so it should fit in a lot of places pretty easily. Now, something worth noting is you do have to wire the whole system into switched power. So this isn't going to work unless the truck is on, which means that the Bluetooth and all that stuff isn't going to work unless the truck is on, at least, switch to accessory. So you're not going to be able to turn the lights on remotely if your truck also isn't on. So that's something worth noting. If you do wire it into continuous power, the back lights on this are on all the time, so you will drain your battery. All right, so given that I just got this installed, I haven't had a ton of time to use it. Definitely not a long-term review, but I'm just going to go over my initial impressions and the things that I like about this, as well as the things that I don't like about it. So starting off with what I like, the install is just really easy and pretty clean. Once you find a spot to mount things, it goes really quickly, and they provide everything that you need, leaving you just the ability to pretty much install it and then install your lights. And that's also really awesome. Having something like this eliminates a lot of those bulky relays that you're going to find with your switches, meaning you don't have to mount a whole bunch of them up in your engine bay and tap new holes and things like that. So I was able to get rid of just a ton of wire clutter in the engine bay, as well as going into the truck, since you're only running one singular wire into the truck to control all of your accessories that you hook up to that. That's just awesome. Made things a lot cleaner in there, and I was able to get rid of a lot of junk. And I also like the app. Now, at this price point, it comes in about $270, $300. Coming with a Bluetooth app and just all of this functionality and customization, I think that's a really compelling value. Now, again, long-term durability will really tell us if there's corners being cut somewhere to hit that price point. I'll get into some things that I don't like that maybe touch on that price, reflecting, or rather quality being reflective of the price that you pay. But so far, it's pretty great. And having the ability to use the app to customize things and control your lights remotely is really awesome. Now, I like the all on and all off button, meaning if I'm driving down some back highway or something early in the morning or late at night and a car rounds a corner, I can quickly turn everything on and back off again without having to fuss around. It's also like the ability to mount things much closer without having to cut holes for switches is awesome as well. Before, I had switches mounted down in some switch blanks, which are not super quick and easy to get to, so sometimes shutting them off quickly and turning them back on is a little bit of a hassle, having to reach down there. So this is just much better, much more polished. Now, the other thing that I like about this setup is the different modes for the different switches. So once I get some chase lights in the back, I'll be able to set those up as pulse, which basically draw attention, let people know that there's a vehicle in front of them. This is handy for super foggy situations, or if you're just in a group run and it's super dusty or snowy or something like that. Just makes it that much easier for you to be spotted with a strobing like amber light, or even clear light or white light as well. So that's awesome, being able to customize that stuff and have a little bit more than just an on-off function on the switches. So now let's dive into the things that I don't like about this setup. The first thing is the breaker that it comes with. It's just another thing that you have to find a spot to mount, which in my case, there's really nowhere good to mount it. So I actually had to make that metal plate and make it bigger so I had a spot to mount it. Just some extra work. And it also brings in a little bit more clutter with wiring. It wouldn't be so much of a complaint if they included something in the box for you to mount it to, but even the plate that they give you to mount the module to the main switch relay, that doesn't even have a mount for the breaker. So you got to find somewhere to mount it, and it can be a little bit inconvenient. I wish, at least at a minimum, if they would include in their mounting solution a little extra space to mount that breaker to, so you can make everything all nice and clean. Or if there was some way to maybe tie it into the overall switch module, that would be awesome. Now, another big thing that kind of irks me is the switch panel on the inside. As it dims, the color of the backlighting changes, and then as it brightens, it changes again. So you may pick a color that's close to however you have like the interior of your vehicle themed. I was just trying to go for like the OEM orange color. It's going to change depending on how bright it is. So something that hopefully they can address maybe with a firmware update in the unit itself, but it is a little bit annoying. Not a total killer, but just something for me. I'm a little bit OCD in that regard, something that I noticed. And along that same lines, the lighting on the buttons is also uneven. So I think there's like 2 or 3 LEDs on the button, and that does create uneven lighting across the button. They could fix this by frosting the buttons and making them more translucent. They're really transparent right now, so the LEDs kind of create hot spots in the backlighting on the buttons. So again, another little thing, some of the more premium options out there on the market have this addressed. They have like the frosted white buttons that help diffuse the light from the backlighting a bit more, giving you more even lighting across the button. So another little small, aesthetic thing that caught my eye. And then I called it out in the video, but the app is a little bit unpolished, could use some work. It does function fine enough, but like the connecting and disconnecting from the Bluetooth network, I had a hard time figuring out that at first because the button to connect just doesn't say anything on it at all. And it could be because I have my app in dark mode. I should actually look at that and see if that changes things. But yeah, you can tell it's just a little bit on the cheap side, but everything else function-wise works. So overall, not a super huge deal on that front. Now, the last thing on my list of stuff that I don't like is under the lid of the relay, so where you're mounting your, or I guess where you're bringing the wires in for your lights, it's a really tight bend. There's not a ton of room in there, so it is a bit more difficult with thicker gauge wires to get those routed in there, especially if you have more than one item running into a relay like I do with my front lights. I have the 2 lights coming in, so it's 4 wires coming into the one switch in there. It was just a touch difficult to get those situated and kind of organized within there. Okay, so now for my closing thoughts on this product. Again, this is not a long-term review or anything like that. I will hopefully be circling back around for that to provide an update maybe in 6 months or a year, just to see if I've had any issues or any problems with it. But on my initial thoughts, I think this is a very compelling product for the price. I personally have been looking for one of these for a while, and I had been looking at Auxbeam's product before. They have some other lower priced options that don't have the app or the RGB ability, but I really like this for that RGB ability and the app as well. So I would have pulled the trigger on this sooner or later regardless of Auxbeam sending it to me, because it really checks all the boxes for me at a price point that I'm willing to pay. I don't need all the additional functionality of the SwitchPros option. I certainly don't want to pay $600 for something that I probably not going to fully utilize. Again, I don't have a ton of accessories right now, so paying that much is a little bit overkill for me. So I think you're getting really good value off of this product here. Now, you're not going to get some things that a more expensive option like the SwitchPros will give you, say like the ability to have multiple switches tied into one set of relays. So like if I wanted to have another switch panel in the back to control maybe scene lighting or things like that, with the SwitchPros you can have up to 3, I believe, so you can control your lighting from different areas. Another thing is like the SwitchPros includes more higher amperage relays in it. So this has 230 amp, 220 amp, 210 amp, and 5 amp relays in it, whereas I think the SwitchPros has 230, and then I think most of like all the other 6 or 20. So you have a bit more power, a bit more juice you can run through it on that higher price option. For me, I don't think I'm going to run into any issues with that. We'll see. The 30 amps plenty enough to run anything that I have. In fact, the lights in front are hooked up to that. Probably don't need to have those. They can probably run off the 20 amp, saving the 30 amp for any maybe other higher power needs. So again, I think it's great value for the money. It's about half the price of the competition, which is very hard to ignore, and it probably provides you 75 to 80% of the functionality. Now again, long-term durability and reliability remains in question. To hit that price point, obviously there's going to be some sacrifices somewhere. I just can't speak to what those are. Likely this will be good enough for your everyday user. The app control, again, tying back into price, having an app at this price point I think is awesome. Just provides you another feature that I think is quite usable. Like if I was outside of the truck at camp, maybe I was working on something on the vehicle, I don't necessarily have to go into the car to turn on the lights. Maybe I'm down away from the truck a little bit. I can control it remotely as long as the vehicle's on. I think that's just a value added bonus. And the ability to also set up groupings, customize what the switches do and the backlighting, all that stuff. I think that's great functionality to include at this price point. Overall, like I touched on earlier, the size of it, everything's pretty small and compact. Allows you to get rid of a lot of clutter, which I love. I had way too much clutter in there, especially from not wanting to shorten some of my wiring harnesses that came with my lights. I kind of just had them bunched up in there because I didn't want to cut and splice. And I did have the room to kind of stuff the wires in there, but having to not have to do that and being able to cut out the relays and excess wire is super, super awesome. Overall, I think this product's pretty great. Time will tell, you know, if there's issues with it, if I have to get in touch with customer service. I don't know how that's going to be. Hopefully I don't have any problems with it. I'm super happy with the product so far. Really can't wait to, you know, get some more lights on the vehicle, utilize it a bit more. Again, that's why I had the gaff tape on some of the switches, because I didn't want the backlight light blaring out of the switches at me, and I'm also not sure exactly how I'm going to have it laid out and set up just yet. But once I do, I'll put on the nice blanks for that and clean everything up. So I'm super happy with this so far, and I definitely thank Auxbeam for sending this out to me and allowing me to review it. I can say without a doubt that I would spend my own money on this, because it hits a price point that I like and I think is reasonable for my uses, and I don't need anything super overboard. I'm not like going out and beating up on my stuff. I don't need 100%, you know, the most reliable products on this vehicle, because again, it's a daily driver. I'm not going to really extreme locations with this vehicle, and so I can get away with probably paying, you know, a lower price for some of the things that I put on this vehicle, because I'm just not using it as hard as some others might. So if you like to use and abuse your stuff and subject it to harsher elements than I do, you know, you could probably benefit from buying some of those nicer options out there on the market. It just comes down to your personal circumstances, where you're using the product, and you know, what you ultimately want to buy. No knocking, you know, those who want to pay more for products out there, and certainly I like to pick up, you know, budget oriented things. I don't have a ton of money, and I don't find it, for me personally, worthwhile to invest a ton of money into certain accessories and things for my truck if I'm not necessarily gonna really kind of see the returns of you know, paying that sort of money for things. I'm not like tied to any one brand, and I don't feel the need to put certain brands on my vehicle so people think it, you know, my truck is built a certain way. I just like to use what works, and most importantly, find stuff that checks the boxes and meets my needs at the most affordable price. And I feel like this 8-gang switch panel, yeah, more than checks all those boxes. So time will tell, you know, again, on long-term durability and reliability of it, but so far I'm pretty happy with it. In the install, everything was really, honestly, super seamless, and yeah, I'm looking forward to getting out and using it more. Hopefully you guys found this video helpful. If you're in the market for something like this, I think you should definitely check it out, and definitely compare it against the options that are out there. You may need more of the features of a higher priced product like SwitchPros, or this may meet your needs. Either way, Auxbeam's not paying me to say any of this stuff. These are just my genuine opinions on the product, and I'm pretty excited to use it and happy that I've got it installed. So yeah, leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys have any questions on the product or anything you might want to see in the long term for like a future review. Otherwise, subscribe if you haven't, and stay tuned for more videos. Until then, catch you guys in the next one.